Welcome back to Capitol Tonight, a statewide look at politics. I'm Loretta Boniti, in for Tim Boyum. Tonight we are joined by North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. Ms. Foxx represents North Carolina's 5th District in the U.S. House of Representatives. She's joining us tonight from our newsroom in Washington, D.C. Representative Foxx, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's get right to this. We're in the 14th day of this government shutdown. We're just days away from this deadline for raising the debt ceiling. And at the end of last week, you were part of a group of Republican lawmakers who met with the president, and it seemed like progress was being made. Is it?
Well, we had hoped so at that meeting and after the meeting, but it appears as though we came to a halt soon after the meeting, and now there's another meeting going on at the White House, and it appears again as though some progress is being made. You know, I'm as frustrated as all of my constituents are that the government has shut down. House Republicans have been sending bills over to the Senate since before the shutdown and after the shutdown almost every day, saying let's open up all or parts of the federal government, but we just can't get any action out of the Senate.
And you know, let's go back to how we got into this situation. I mean, the House has voted for several continuing resolutions to continue funding government. They don't want to fund the Affordable Care Act. Can you talk to me a little bit about how we got here, if this is the right place for us to be? Is it better for us to be in this shutdown than funding things that you find to be costly things for the government?
Well, we quit asking for defunding of the Affordable Care Act, but we do believe in fairness for all. The President has unilaterally delayed the implementation of the Affordable Care Act for many groups and for businesses, and what we're asking for is fairness. We think that individuals should have the same delay that businesses have, and we don't think that members of Congress should have a special treatment under the Affordable Care Act. So our message is simply, let's be fair to all of the American people. You know, our Declaration of Independence says that we are created equal, but the President and the Senate are treating people unequally in this country, and that just isn't the American way.
What's your message at this point to these furloughed federal workers? You know, we've been certainly hearing them raise their voices here in North Carolina. We've been watching them do that across the country. And we know that they're going to get paid retroactively once the government gets back up and running. But for many, you know, we're at the 2-week point now. 2 weeks without pay starts to be hard for a lot of folks out there.
I agree. And again, we have sent over legislation from the House to make sure that people get paid, but we cannot get the Senate to act. We want the government opened up. We didn't want the shutdown to begin with, and we're hoping very much that we can come to an agreement to reopen the government. The President seems to be more intent on that than he is about doing something about the debt ceiling. But Republicans know that we cannot continue year after year after year piling debt on ourselves and on our children and grandchildren. So we need to come to grips with it. You know, President Obama said in 2006, 2008, raising the debt ceiling is a failure of leadership. Senator Biden, Vice President Biden, then Senator Biden said, it's the wrong thing to do unless we can deal with the underlying drivers of the debt. So we have some big issues we need to be dealing with here as a country.
Let's talk about this debt ceiling debate. That's certainly something everybody's talking about this week. Financial experts are saying the country won't have enough cash on hand as of Thursday to pay all of its bills. Is Congress going to be able to pass an increase to the debt ceiling by the end of this week?
Well, I think it depends on how reasonable the proposals are that come from the Senate and that come from the meeting with the President. We, again, want to take care of the nation's bills. We never want to see the government not pay its bills, but we have to get to the point where we don't continue to rack up bills that are unnecessary. We need to deal with the waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, again, as well as the drivers of the debt. And we haven't been able to get our colleagues on the other side of the aisle and the other side of the Capitol to come to grips with reality.
Throughout this interview, I've kind of sensed some of your frustration with where the Senate's standing, where the President's standing. Maybe a little bit more of a broad question. Where are we right now in government? Are we at a point with this current group of elected leaders that everyone can get together and find some sort of common ground?
Well, you know, every bill that we have passed that's gone over to the Senate has been passed with bipartisan support. I don't know the exact number of Democrats, but I think it's like 1/3 of the Democrat caucus has voted with us on this legislation. So we were hoping that with a strong show of support from Democrats on the House side, that the Senate would pay attention to that, but they haven't even been willing to do that. I know that Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, for example, is very frustrated. We voted to help the District of Columbia be able to fund its programs, and she's very frustrated that the Democrats in control of the Senate won't take up her bill. So it's hurting even Democrats in the House, and certainly both Democrats and Republicans across the country.
Representative Foxx, you had to have seen some of these polls out there that basically just say that folks are fed up with Congress and that the President can't seem to reach compromises. Ultimately, do you feel like Congress and folks up there in Washington are doing what needs to be done to keep this country moving in the right direction right now?
Well, as I said, we have to come to grips with the fact that we are spending more than we take in. We borrow 42 cents for every dollar that we spend. Our national debt right now is larger than our total GDP. We cannot continue to operate this way, and Republicans have been saying this for a long, long time. Actually, ever since I've been in Congress. And my first 2 years in Congress, we actually did cut spending, and we had the government on a path to have a surplus at this time. And then Nancy Pelosi became Speaker, and President Obama was elected, and we went in the other direction. In the 5 years that the President has been President, we have racked up more than $1 trillion worth of debt. And we cannot continue to operate this way. We have to come to the realization that we have to slow down spending, or we are going to destroy the country.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us today. We know things are very busy up there in Washington right now. Again, North Carolina Representative